and welcome back to End Zone Scoop. This is our second live broadcast, so I hope you're enjoying along for the ride. How is everyone doing, guys?
Good. We're glad you're with us this time.
Yay!
I know we missed you last time.
Yeah.
Johnny was really good though. He
was so good.
He had
Johnny
some
is
really
very good
stuff to have out, and I was like, maybe I should just let him talk.
Yeah, he was great. Like I would love to have him on again in the future. It was really fun, and it was really fun to do the live broadcast. I think that they're fun because people get a little more glimpse of our personalities. Like we watch each other when we were just recording the audio, and it's like we need to share this.
Yeah, exactly.
The eye rolls and the faces. We need to share all of that.
Although the camera gives me really lovely teabag eyes. I love
it.
I mean, nobody likes themselves on camera, so.
I just ordered a videographer for my wedding. I'm going to be like, oh, Andy, you look great, but I look horrendous.
That's awesome.
So we've got quite a lot to talk about tonight. Obviously, preseason is now underway. There was some not so shocking news today about Tim Tebow. And then I'm going to have a little bit of a stab at the Super Bowl predictions in terms of what I think is going to go with. So let's start with Tim Tebow.
Let's start with Tim Tebow, shall we?
We called it. Called it.
Yeah.
Without question. Absolutely. So as Liz alluded to, they let the Jacksonville Jaguars released Tim Tebow today. I don't know if you guys saw the videos of his blocking, and he was not meant to be. If he had switched to being a tight end at the beginning of his career, it would have made so much sense at the time. But
yeah.
He waited too long. He was trying this comeback, and I know Urban Meyer was his college coach, and we get it, right? He was trying to give the guy a stab, but I don't know about you guys, but I just really feel like it's time to be done.
Yeah, I do. I kind of think, he had one of those careers where certainly when I became a fan, it was kind of a known name, but I don't think he was particularly, worthy enough of anything like that. So to me, it was weird that he came back. To me, it's kind of like left field. It was out of nowhere. So if anything, it's kind of ruined his reputation a little bit more so by coming back and basically failing, I would say. But yeah, so that's a shame. But yeah, not at all a surprise.
No, I mean, the last time I heard Tim Tebow's name before him coming back was on the Aaron Hernandez podcast. So, I mean, that's not a good combination.
That's never a good sign.
So, yeah. And then before that, obviously, he also had a really good college football career, but he's definitely one of those guys who was just really good in college and just couldn't make that transition into the NFL. And that happens to a lot of players. So, not surprised he's been released. Do think it was a little bit too late, and it's not exactly a Cinderella moment.
I mean, I give them credit for giving him a chance, right? And he probably showed something that was like, yes, he's got some talent. He's got some, God knows he's in great shape. God knows he's been working really hard on some stuff. But I just really feel like this was a last grasp because he went from college, which not all players translate from college to the NFL. It just doesn't happen. And so you turn around and he was great in college, didn't do well in the NFL, gave that up, decided to go play baseball, failed terribly in baseball, and then he's going to come back and try and play football. It was just, he was trying to find his spot. He was such a good, I think it was announcing, and it was either college football and baseball. He was fantastic.
Yeah,
he just needs to stick with that and realize that really is his calling, not the game itself.
Yeah, I mean, you're not Michael Jordan. Even he himself says he wasn't that good at baseball. So,
Exactly. So yeah, I agree with you guys. I don't think anyone was surprised by his release, but at the same time, I'm glad we can quit talking about Tebow mania 10 years after.
Do you think people might have kept their receipt? Who got a Tebow jersey, or there's going to be rocking about with Tebow.
Jaguars.
I'm telling you, those Florida people, they're diehard about Tebow. You cannot talk to them. You cannot talk to them about it.
Oh well, yeah. Well, maybe they'll just be strutting about with Tebow Jaguar jerseys.
That's right. That's right.
see if someone's wearing one at London this year.
Oh, there will be.
There will be.
You can spot the Tebow in the crowd. I can guarantee you that.
And a shot every time you do. Anyway.
Oh, God.
You'd be very drunk, I think.
Quickly.
Uh-oh. And then let's talk about preseason. So, I mean, have you obviously, Dayna, it's a lot easier for you to catch preseason games. For us, it's not as easy. What have your thoughts been so far?
So preseason has been really interesting. And I think this is what Shona is going to chat about here in just a few minutes is it's the overreaction. I said it started 5 seconds after the first preseason. It actually started at the Hall of Fame game when the Steelers played the Cowboys. People were like, oh, this is terrible. It's this, it's that, and the other. Not really, ladies. It's just a glorified practice. But I find it interesting. And Shona, I know you were going to talk about that. So let's get into that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's mainly Seahawks Twitter. You gotta love them. They always implode as soon as the Seahawks lose. But I mean, there's so much emphasis on the preseason, and it's kind of like this year particularly because there hasn't really been, the usual warm-up contests that you have in the summer because of COVID. So this is their warm-ups to the season, and obviously Seahawks lost and Seahawks Twitter went crazy. So this is giving me an idea of talking about it because so much people put hype on it. And I think a good example is the Lions, who went 4-0 in preseason and then went 0-17. So you can really base the preseason games on how your team is going to do in the season, because it means pretty much nothing. It's time for players to get out and get a feel for how the coaches want to play in the system, how the new rookies are going to fit into the team on the offense and defense. But, to those who obsess over them like it's a new girlfriend or boyfriend, it is very important to them. But yeah, I just, rarely does a number one ranked team who, the person who wins the Super Bowl, rarely do they win every game in the preseason and also rarely win all their games during the season because it's such a long season. It's a slog. We're now competing with, COVID as well. So there's going to be added things to the season too. But yeah, no, it is entertaining seeing fans completely implode and basically want, Russell Wilson to be traded because apparently we make Nathan Peterman look like a new quarterback. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. And I watched a lot of the preseason and we like to pick on Seahawks Twitter, but it's not just them. I saw it from every fan base. I don't know if you know this, but in San Francisco, Trey Lance had the best game he'd ever played in his entire life when he actually was sacked multiple times and multiple interceptions. Why? Because he's a rookie. And these are practices. This is the time, as we've heard a million people say, for teams to try things out. Will this work? Will it not? What are our strengths? What are they not? That is the true point to preseason, that and evaluation. We have to remember teams today are cutting parts of their teams. And so therefore they needed that first game to look at them. Do they look like they're comfortable in their position? Do they look like they were a deer in the headlights where they lost completely? And I think that that's more of the evaluation. So yes, Russell Wilson didn't take a snap. They had, I'm not even sure who actually played for the Green Bay Packers because their entire team was not playing in that game. So they were down to fourth and fifth stringers at that point, which is the point. They have to start whittling away at this team. They need tape for evaluation. And the only way that you get a true, well-rounded evaluation is to put them in situations that are game-like, but also trying new things out. I also think it's even more important for these teams with new coaches and teams with new coordinators, coaches, new quarterbacks, and then those rookies. This is that game-like experience because we all know it's not a real game. You're not playing against the superstars. The game-like experience is hugely, hugely important for them to get comfortable within their position. Did you guys get to watch any of the preseason at all?
No, I haven't.
That's too bad. Yeah, it was actually pretty interesting. There's the Minnesota Vikings looked terrible. They just did, but that's okay because that is what they were trying to do. They were trying out all of these young kids. The Houston Texans won their game. Does that tell you anything right there, how non-important that this is? But I do think that the fans who follow the game closely or are more than just a casual fan truly understand what the point of the preseason is. And that is just a glorified practice. They just happen to put it on national TV to get some viewership. And I guess there's a lot of people watching. That is how desperate they are for football. The numbers were through the roof for preseason, which distracts me up every single time.
I feel like it's a good, like you said with the rookies as well, teams might be thinking, right, we have maybe a player that wants a new contract, he's got a lot of money, but let's bring in this rookie to see if he can overtake him. And it could go either one way. Either he will and they won't have to pay this guy, or they're like, oh my God, get this guy down on the contract.
Exactly. It's very, very true. And I think that for the most part, the teams got what they wanted this last week. They got the information that they needed. As you saw, teams making a lot of cuts on Monday instead of waiting till today. I think they took that game film from these preseason games, looked at it and said, sorry, these players just never looked like they were comfortable or fit, or we gave them an assignment and they blew it multiple times. And so I think that gave them a little bit of leeway to just kind of cut down a smidge, which again, is the entire purpose. Now, it is interesting too, and Shona, I don't mean to step on your toes, so please let me know if you were going to mention this, but I have heard a lot of conversation about people, the teams changing kind of the traditional flow of preseason. So when there were 4 games, the first game we saw the starters usually for a couple of series, and then you'd bring in the second stringers and the third stringers and kind of go through the progression. It was the 4th game where they didn't play a starter. They all sat on the edge, all the young kids. It was just a big practice for the young kids. And the philosophy seems to have shifted just a smidge to where this first game, most teams treated like that 4th game. And I don't know if it's because of the cut down, or they feel more pressure, or they feel like they're going to have less time to have eyeballs on these kids. So they want to see them as much as possible, which brings up the question. I wonder if we will see any starters at all during preseason. I think that there were some teams that said that their starting quarterbacks might play a series in the next game, because there were quite a few fans that were whining that they didn't get to see them. It's like it's preseason, people. But but I still don't think it'll be long. I still think over the preseason, all 3 games, we are going to see a lot of 4th and 5th stringers, just because they need that evaluation time.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I covered, it's bits of rain. It's British football. I covered a team who won all the preseason games and then got relegated that season. So that just shows it means absolutely nothing.
It's just practice.
And fans moaning.
Exactly.
I understand if you go to a game, but that's why you go to the regular season, because that's when the
stuff. And then, so one of the other themes we wanted to talk tonight was the contract dispute. So, Dayna, do you want to kick us off on that side?
Yeah, so there are still a couple of contract disputes that are getting a lot of airtime. Probably most notably is up in Seattle, because Seattle has 2 contract disputes. They have Dwayne Brown and Jamal Adams. So I'm going to start with Dwayne Brown. So Dwayne Brown, he's on the last year of his contract. He had probably one of the best years he's ever had last season. He is a absolute linchpin in the Seahawks offensive line. And he feels like he can play for a couple of more years. I believe he's, I should have looked it up. I think he's 35-ish is how old, maybe 36. But he could play for probably a couple more years. And so he wants to be locked into Seattle. He doesn't want to have to go to another team. He doesn't want to have to play there on. And I think Seattle was a little surprised by that request from this particular player, because he's been so amiable most of the time. And so it's very easy, to think that he's just going to kind of go with the flow. I really think that Seattle brought in Stone Forsythe as a rookie this year as possible replacement. Well, after that first preseason game, I've changed for Stone Forsythe, because we're going to need Dwayne Brown this year. Nothing to get you, Stone. You're a baby. We get that for sure. But so I think that it is important to state Dwayne Brown will get his extension. He will get what he wants. Russell Wilson put it out there. He has to be on my team. That's it, right? That was what Wilson's whole issue was the off season, was that he wasn't getting help. Well, they're certainly not going to take his best offensive lineman away. So that will get done. But they have a history, Seattle does, of not extending a player too early because that sets a precedent. And so I won't be surprised if they talk to Dwayne Brown and say, let's talk about it during the season. We will get this done. And I think eventually it will get done. The bigger issue, obviously, for Seattle is the Jamal Adams trade. This trade caused more grief within a single fan base than I have seen in a very long time. And the reason for that is how much they gave up for him. Multiple first-round picks, another player, like they gave away basically the farm for him. To that end, he's going to get his contract, right? They're not going to have wasted all of that. Now, there's been a lot of I'm going to use a word my grandpa used all the time. A lot of hullabaloo, a lot of blustering, a lot of media people going on and on about how, there's all this dissent in Seattle between Jamal Adams and they're going to tag him and this and that and the other. But let me tell you this, Pro Football Focus, because they caused a lot of soup this morning for no reason. The Seahawks and Jamal Adams are $2 million apart. That's it. And it's $2 million guaranteed money from either next year or the year before. This is not hard. This will get done. I think there's a lot of blustering going on just because there's nothing else really to talk about in the NFL right now, right? Because we can't talk about Deshaun Watson, which I'm going to in just a minute. We can't talk about a lot of other things. So I think that there's a lot of things that it's just kind of mellow right now. Anyway, so they're talking about Jamal Adams. This contract will also get done. I think John Snyder's going to end up having to bend a little bit, and that is okay. He just doesn't like to do it. It's the one thing. But we are talking about making Jamal Adams. They are going to make Jamal Adams the highest paid safety. There's some conversation that he wants to be paid like a linebacker because of the way he plays the position, but they're making him the highest paid safety by a few $1 million. So then that gets him closer to the linebacker stage. I think it's just a lot of push-pull right now. And I also wonder, because Seattle likes the drama, if they're just going to wait till the last second. We're not going to see this at the day.
It's like they always do this. They're like, contract dispute. Oh, yeah, don't worry.
Really? We signed him 3 weeks ago. We just decided not to tell you.
Why do you do this to me, Seattle? Why? You get me refreshing Twitter every day. You get all the Seahawks reporters telling me it's going to happen, and I have to wait for it to happen.
I know. It's just so annoying. But there is one more contract dispute out there that is not getting a lot of airtime, and it shocks me because this seems to be the bigger deal, in my opinion, and that is TJ Watt with the Steelers. TJ Watt is having holding in. Now, let me explain that for those who don't know. There used to be called holdouts, where they would hold out. They wouldn't come to camp at all. They wouldn't come to training camp at all. Well, then the NFLPA in their last bargaining agreement said that the team could fine them $500,000 mandatory for every track. So then all of a sudden everyone's coming, but they aren't practicing. So now it's called holding in. Okay. So they're in, but they're not playing, right? It's not practicing. So TJ Watt is holding in. TJ Watt was the runner-up to Defensive Player of the Year last year. This kid is insanely good. But what happened was Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa got a 5-year, $135 million contract. And TJ Watt's like, yeah, I want more than that. And so he and the Steelers are having this whole push-pull. Now, supposedly it's very, kumbaya, and everyone's happy in Pittsburgh land, but they're not anywhere near close to getting this done. From what I've heard. Now, we also know that deals are done within seconds, so that could all change the minute we stop recording. But as of right now, they're struggling, and their best defensive player, and one of the best defensive players in the league, is not playing football. And so while Jamal Adams is too one of the better, best defensive players in the league, this for the Steelers organization is a much bigger deal because he is their star. Right. So they need to make sure that they get him locked down pretty soon. I think he's going to want to be paid the highest edge rusher by far. Yeah. And the Steelers are going to have no choice but to bend for that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Instead of like that Nicolas Cage film, Gone in 60 seconds, it's Deal in 60 seconds in the NFL.
That's a really good analogy. I like that.
Shona does this every show. She comes up with these things every single time.
I don't know. Dayna said a few good ones today.
I've heard.
But here's the thing. I mean, do either one of you guys have any question that probably all three of those deals won't get done? I mean, are you concerned at all?
No, I think they have to. They have to, both organizations have to make these deals, especially the Jamal Adams one, because as you say, there was such a big dispute over what Seahawks gave up for him, which I didn't agree with because Seahawks draft's been pretty poor. Let's be honest. 4 years now. Let's just be real. Apart from Tyler Lockett, we all love him. Yeah, and I wasn't that bothered about the trade we made, but I think if they don't sign him, then it will cause a major ruckus, and I don't think the Seahawks actually want that for their fan base. So, but I think the TJ Watt one is paramount. It's actually like it could change the Steelers' season completely if they don't re-sign him, and I don't think they'll do that either.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is they talked about the franchise tag for both of those players, for both Jamal Adams and TJ Watt. I know for Jamal Adams, what they are offering is well above the tag number. I think by about $3 million, maybe $2 to $3 million. And so I think that alone, he's not going to sit there and keep saying no when the tag amount he will get is so much less. It makes more sense for both parties to get it done. And pretty much the same for Watt, because they cannot let him walk. I don't know how I can make that any clearer. They cannot let him go.
I don't want Dwayne Brown to go either. He's like the big teddy bear. Who you won't mess with.
I know. I think Russell Wilson would revolt.
I don't think we'd have a team. I think it would be like, the Seahawks are not playing the entire season.
For sure. Now, Liz, when you said you wanted to talk about who you thought was going to win the Super Bowl, I laughed out loud in my house. I laughed. I'm like, girl, it's preseason, but you were hell-bent on it.
She made me read a story of hers that she wrote, and who she's got as her prediction for the Super Bowl makes me want to like curl up into like an armadillo type shape and just like spout out grass.
This should be good.
My reasons are valid.
All right, let's hear them.
Okay.
It's a league rival. You don't do it.
Hey, you know my love for this certain player, so cool. Okay, so the obvious, I'm going to mention a couple of things. I'm going to mention the favorites. I'm going to mention the contenders, the ones that shouldn't but could. The obvious to me is the Chiefs and the Buccaneers. For all the reasons that I don't need to explain. At the end of the day, Chiefs have got a really good, they've got really talented offense. The Buccaneers have pretty much kept all of their team as it was. They still got Brady. They've still got a good team either side of the ball. It's going to happen, realistically. Might not want it to happen, but it might. In terms of the contenders, in that, at the moment, I've got Green Bay and Buffalo Bills. I think, again, those are both two strong teams. Interesting with Aaron Rodgers over the offseason, whether he was even going to play in the first place. I think he's coming back. I think this is his final season. Who knows what could happen there. In terms of my long shots, and this is what Shona was banging on about, is so at the moment I've got Los Angeles Rams, the 49ers, who we don't, obviously want, Ravens, and then completely the team that I would not expect to put in this is the Browns. The reason why I've gone with the Rams is because I've got a feeling they're like, I love Matt Stafford. For anyone who doesn't already know that, I love Matt Stafford. Yeah, and Dana's rolling her eyes already.
He's not the answer. Sorry, he's not. Anyway, to all their problems.
I don't know.
He's great, but not the answer to all their problems.
Yeah, you're right. It's not a one-man team. That's definitely not how this works. I just kind of feel with the team he's been on for several years, and I guess his luck, if you will, he was never going to make it to a Super Bowl with the Lions.
To a playoff.
To a playoff even.
To a winning season.
So yeah, I'd like to think that they could do that. I think they've got a really talented team. Like we've said, it's can't do it on his own. He does need other people. San Fran, again, I think as well, they've, like we said about Trey Lance earlier, but it's hard to kind of judge that at this point, being so early on. The Ravens could just about do it. We all know that Lamar Jackson's a very talented player. And then Browns was a bit of an odd one, but I kind of think that whilst they've not got the most talented the kind of roster, like their offense does look really good. So Odell Beckham Jr. is coming back. Pairing up with Baker Mayfield, Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. Mm-hmm. It's a really good squad. They did make it through to the divisional round and they just lost out to Chiefs. So as much as I wouldn't necessarily put them on that list, I do think that could happen. In terms of who I think out of all of those then, and this is the bit that Shona was highlighting too, I was saying to her that, like, to me, my head says the Chiefs, but then my heart says the Rams.
Blasphemy. Absolute blasphemy. I will never ever want another league rival to win the Super Bowl. I just can't do it. Cannot.
Well, let me defend her just a little bit, Shona.
I understand. They have a great team, and Matt Stafford, is a lot better than Jared Goff, aka Ryan Gosling. But and they're all in. They have to go all in. But I still think they missed the window a couple of years ago. I said they have to win the Super Bowl 2 years ago, or they're not going to win it anytime soon. And I still stand by that.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So let's look back over this for just a minute. So first of all, I want to say that there have only been, I believe, 2 teams, possibly 3. I can't remember, if it depends on how far back you go, that have been to the Super Bowl 3 years in a row. So the odds of the Chiefs making it back to the Super Bowl for a third year are actually pretty slim, just if you go by the history of the game. Now, with that said, the Chiefs have now brought back pretty much most of their team. But at the same time, other teams in the AFC have gotten a lot better. Okay. And so we have to kind of keep that in mind. The Bills are hands down a contender for the Super Bowl this year. They have really figured a lot of things out. You are not wrong in any way, shape, or form about the Browns. The Browns could be the sneaky ones that come up out of nowhere. And they're not really coming out of nowhere. If you go back and look over their seasons, they got just a little better, just a little better, just a little better, which is exactly what you want to see from a team, right? And last year, they lost Odell Beckham Jr. early in the season. And God knows what a difference he could have made. They also had a ton of injuries. And my personal favorite, Myles Garrett, is still there. And so, that is something to think about. So I don't think the Browns are a stretch at all. I think that is actually probably a decent shot to do very well into the playoffs, if not to the AFC Championship game. It's all going to depend in the AFC, especially who has to play who in the playoffs, how that all shakes out. Because what happened to the Browns is they ran headfirst into the redheaded monster of the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Had they had to play somewhere else, they would have been in the AFC Championship game. And the same, we had the Titans here before. So there's a lot of really young, good teams that are now either no longer afraid of the Chiefs or have just gotten a little better that they can give them a run for their money. So I don't think you're real wrong on that. The Ravens, I'm not real convinced on, but you never ever count a Harbaugh out. And so you always kind of have to keep an eye on that. The NFC is a much harder race to call, I think. I think that's much tougher. And it used to be, was always the NFC was who's going to beat each other up to get to the top, and the Patriots. Well, the Patriots are gone now, so we don't agree with that anymore. But now we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know. I know they return most of their team. I don't know if they'll catch quite the lightning in the bottle that they did last year, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
I do not have the faith in Matt Stafford that you do. I'm sorry. Matt Stafford throws a beautiful football. Is he an improvement over Goff? Yes. But they lost half their coaching staff and they lost a lot of defensive players. And yes, Aaron Donald is Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey is Jalen Ramsey. But at the same time, I just think I'm not sure how that's going to click. I don't know that Matt Stafford can stay healthy. He does have a bit of an issue with that.
Yeah.
Green Bay.
He's not really like, the Bruce Willis film when he's unbreakable. He is quite breakable.
He is a little breakable.
Oh,
for sure.
I like you, but you are. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think that in the NFC, you've got a handful of teams that could win, depending on all the things. We always say on paper, everything looks shiny, but it's injuries happen, people fall, things go. I mean, look what happened to San Francisco last year. They should have killed everybody, and the injury bug killed them. And so I think that one is definitely a little bit harder to call. I don't think we're going to have a repeat of last year. I don't think the Chiefs and the Bucks are going to make it. Maybe one or the other, but I think that we're going to have some change up. Just because there are some very hungry, very well-coached teams out there who could probably find a way. And it's nothing against the Chiefs or the Bucks. They're fantastic teams and will be very hard to beat. I just think there's a little more in the mix this year than necessarily last year.
I just want a Super Bowl where I can just sit, relax.
No.
Not have to worry if Tom Brady's going to win the ring,
Shona, why would you say that? That means that your favorite team is not in the Super Bowl then.
Oh, if they get there, I'm going to not be relaxed. But I'm never relaxed with any Seahawks game. It's I mean, we could be 30-0 up, and I'm still like, oh, well, the team can easily come back because we're
Let me tell you this little story. So when the Seahawks went to the Super Bowl and won it a few years back, they were playing the Denver Broncos. So the best defense of all time against the best offense of all time. And while we're at halftime, Percy Harvin runs that ball back. I start getting congratulations texts from my friends, and I'm like, no. It's still Peyton Manning.
It's like that GIF. I can't remember his name. What's his name? The guy that sings Hotline Bling.
That sings what?
Oh, Drake.
Drake, yeah, the GIF where he's like, this is Seahawks.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. But ladies, the season is just around the corner. It's very exciting.
I know.
Yeah.
But Seahawks stories already got us losing the whole season, so we might as well just write it off now.
It's fine. It'll be no stress season then.
Yeah, no stress at all for me. I'll just be like, it's cool, breezy.
That's funny. I want to let our watchers and listeners know though, there's a good chance that all three of us are going to be in London together for one of the NFL games. And so we're super excited, and hopefully we'll be able to do something fun for everyone while we're there all together. Please don't shut the border. That's all. Please don't shut the border.
We
don't need that now. I'm doubly vaccinated now too. So yay!
That's yay! That's awesome.
Although the second dose, wow, that floored me.
Yeah. They're not the greatest for that.
Nope. Anyway, back to the NFL. It's so soon.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Very, very excited.
Yeah, can't wait. 3 weeks away, is it?
That's right. And so I want our listeners to know too, once the season starts, we are going to be on every other week, not every 3 weeks. And so we will get to see us a lot more often. And we will always be right here on our YouTube channel. And you can always find us on Twitter also. And so hopefully you will all join us again when we come back. Ladies, we will see you again beginning of season.
Yay!
It's going to be so fun. All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.